I think you're also saying if you don't have vision, or even before you get a vision, serve somebody else's vision. The seeds you sow as a follower will be the harvest you reap as a leader.
You see gifts in people and you allow them to lean into those gifts. You don't make them feel bad about those things. I could have easily felt like an outsider in God's house.
Most of the time, the open doors that have come into my life that were going to be the easier path were the wrong doors.
Right.
Maybe we're reducing creativity towards artistry.
Right. I think the church is always trying to keep up with the content of the world.
There's something in front of you that's unique to you.
Right.
Just add that into the mix and watch as that creates pathways and attracts other people to what it is that you're doing. Hey, it's Rich, and you're listening to the Mature Me podcast, weekly content devoted to all things life, leadership, culture, and faith. Thank you for taking some time to tune in. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on all our social channels so you don't miss a thing. Let's listen to today's episode. Well, hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Mature Me podcast. My name is Rich Wilkerson Jr., and wherever you're at in the world, we are excited that you are tuning in. Go ahead right now, leave us a comment, like this content, subscribe to this channel, and of course, as always, share it. I'm joined with Dakota Duron, who helps me hold it down right here in the studio. Dakota, how are we feeling today?
Feeling great. It's been a great morning. Excited to be in the design district. How you feeling? You feeling good?
I feel good. I feel really good. I'm really excited because we have got one of my oldest friends.
Come on now.
Quite honestly, as I say that, one of my oldest friends on the planet.
Well, hold up. Oldest, like,
Yeah,
that can go both ways. Like,
I need to qualify
yeah,
that.
like
This man's the age of Methuselah.
Yeah, exactly.
These are Bible jokes. One of my oldest friends, I've known this man since I was 15 years of age. 15 years of age. Pastor Terrance Wilson from Cool Church is in the house today.
Let's go.
T, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm a little nervous. I won't lie. Like, you know, mature me, like it's a big deal. You know?
Do you feel like you're mature?
No, I still don't. Sometimes I do.
Yeah, right.
Well, I got life insurance, so yeah, definitely.
I think it's a big stretch to say I am mature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Or I just think it's better to say I'm maturing.
I'm mature. Yeah, that's a better thing to say for sure.
That's a better way to say it, you know. Terrance pastors here in the South Florida area, but we've known each other since we were kids. Maybe, Terrance, for those that are new to who you are, maybe just take a little bit and introduce who you are, what you're doing, and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, name's Terrance Wilson. Been friends with Rich for a very long time. I would have been 16 when we met.
Yep.
Yeah, which is crazy. You had puka shells around your neck and bleach blonde tips.
Puka shells.
When I met you, and you thought it was
His
cool.
pronunciation of puka shells just makes me laugh.
Puka?
I think it's puka. I mean, I got him in Waikiki.
Yeah.
I think I got him at PacSun.
Gift shop.
Yeah.
You definitely got him at PacSun. Anyways.
Well, I was, okay, keep going.
Yeah, no, been, I don't know, where do you even start, man? Like, been in ministry together for a very long time. It was great getting to be pastors with you and build something cool in the Rendezvous, that young adult ministry. And then in 2019, I was able to go and launch something myself, sent out by Pastor Rich and Robin Wilkerson Sr., called Cool Church. Cool stands for Created Out of Love. And before it was a church, we were a business, a branding / fashion company that just like to create beautiful things that are made with passion, made with purpose, and just really made to bless people. But once again, 2019, we started a church called Cool in Miramar, the city of Miramar, which nobody knows where that is. So I just say Miami because it's close enough for most people. And God has really done a great thing in the last 5 years.
Let's go.
And in 5 years, man, we've been able to finally get a building. Praise God.
Come on now.
For that. We're running services in 2 different cities, 2 locations, got an online presence. God's doing something good. And we're just trying to fulfill this mission to build strong families, to build strong futures. And been going ever since and going to keep on doing it till God.
Well, I think it's amazing. I'm glad that you're on today. Dakota and I are both pumped about it, and I thought that we could obviously get to know you.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of insights that you have towards lots of different interesting sectors and categories I think will be fun to talk about.
Yep.
One of those things, of course, is church. And I want to talk about church and leadership. Always love talking about that.
Yep.
But also just all things creative.
Yeah.
You and I, as we go way back in our journey, we started VU Church in 2015, but VU, the church that I lead today, started out of this young adult ministry that we both did together for probably right at 8 years,
Yep.
called The Rendezvous.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just talk a little bit about your story in those beginning days of even getting into ministry and maybe what your thought pattern was towards ministry. Like,
Yeah.
because you kind of got there through the creative arm. That was sort of what drew you in. You're an artist first.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't know if that really could work in ministry, but then you
Right.
found a lane with it.
And did you grow up in church from the time like your family was in church?
This guy was
I'm
born
a
in
church
church.
rat, man.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah.
had a bed under the pews.
Yes,
Like I
sir.
was there for every sermon, every gathering, the old ladies sewing gathering. I had to show up to whatever it was. I was a Royal Ranger. You know, we're ready,
Yep.
ready for anything, ready to work, play, serve, obey, worship, live, etc. Like I was there for all of that stuff.
Bro, Royal Rangers is the best thing ever.
It's the greatest thing.
Did you ever go? Do you know what Royal Rangers
It
is?
ended
Dakota?
right when I was getting there.
It shaped my life,
which
bro.
I think was, I don't know if it
Is
was
it
a good
still
thing or a bad
happening?
thing.
I think it is still happening in some places. I don't know if they're still giving
I
out
Maybe
think
cutting
just
shop cards.
take a
but-
moment before we talk about what is Royal Rangers?
Royal Rangers is just straight up like the Christian Boy Scouts. Like
Yep.
that's just what it is. And it was cool because you earn merit badges. You go on camping trips. You know, you get around like some manly men and you go out into the forest and learn how to camp. You learn how to use a knife. It's the only thing that allows you to carry, like, unless you're security, you can carry like a weapon in church.
Yeah.
And I had a card. It was a cut and chop card.
13-year-olds,
I was
just knives.
I was 12. Like I could stab somebody if I needed to because I had a cut and chop card. That made it legal. in
It's
the
just
church
so
world.
ridiculous that we were showing up to church with knives on
my
our
belt.
hip.
On my belt. Yeah.
It's okay, Mom.
And weren't you dressed like head to toe in like
Head to toe.
khaki?
Bolo
like,
tie?
It was a whole
I
thing.
didn't go that far. Those
did.
kids were strange. Of course you
I was a
did.
senior guide.
It's like
I took it serious.
ROTC at church. I'm not doing that.
I took it so serious.
I
Bro.
was in youth group, bro.
I was in both.
You wore a beret to church?
Absolutely.
That's so strange, man.
It was a thing,
It's the
man.
freaking Christian militia.
That's what they
was.
asked of you, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't just him. I've seen it.
But they
honor,
also
Rich.
like we had these big things called what are they called? Powwows?
Powwow. Oh yeah. I got saved at a powwow.
You did?
12 years old. I got saved.
Way.
Wow.
In the woods, went down to the altar, I guess.
Yeah.
And it changed my life, man.
And what kind of knots did you learn at that powwow? Like how to tie? Do you remember any of those?
Oh man, slip knot. You know,
Bro,
square
all
knot,
those-
square knot.
Bro,
square
all
knot was
those
the best.
knots,
Yeah.
man. Like,
Slip knot, square knot.
what is all that for? Just
I use none of it now,
yeah.
but it was important
Sailing.
back then. Yeah.
Remember? And then we used to have this thing called the Pinewood Derby.
Oh, yeah.
man.
I was big into the Pinewood Derby.
So you did do this or you didn't?
We just kept the Pinewood Derby. We got rid of the berets and the badges.
So you know what the
I
Pinewood...
learned how to use a
People are hearing this, they have
Dremel.
no idea what we're talking about.
I learned how to use a Dremel, sanded,
Oh, man.
multiple layers of.
What is...
I went to Michael's to get all the
Yep.
accessories
Had
and
to.
the stickers.
I had to.
Oh, yeah. WD-40 on the axles.
Okay,
thing go
explain. Because people are listening to this in their car. They have no idea. What is the Pinewood Derby?
Pinewood Derby was, I think, a part of Royal Rangers. Obviously, you can do
Absolutely
it
was.
outside of Royal Rangers.
you told us
but
it was
you
shut down, but you
basically-
guys kept the Derby.
We did. I think that's what they
Kept the
that's
fun
what they
parts.
wanted.
Leave
they
it to
took,
some
they
people
took
from
the add-ons
Louisiana.
and took
Yeah. We love
the
NASCAR.
foundation.
Get our
It's
kids
basically a
starting soon.
block, a wood block that you get with two axles, four wheels, and it's supposed to be where you draw a car, cut it out
Cut
of the
it out.
block,
Mhm.
sand it, make a little car, and then you do a race at the end.
100%.
You see who the Pinewood Derby champ is.
And how did your car do?
Not good. It looked really good though. I think I may have got placed in the looks, but I did not place at all in the
Aesthetics,
race.
you know, it's all good.
Did you ever do the Pinewood Derby?
Absolutely.
That happened down here in
I
Miami.
like won it. Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I did it in Tacoma, Washington, and there was a guy in our neighborhood who like built his own track, and so his kids were testing their cars.
Stop.
They put so much lead in those things. They were crushing, bro. They were crushing. Like,
Wait.
it's lead heavy.
Right.
What do you think? I'm George Brett, man? Come on. I didn't. That's for Dakota.
Oh my god.
What did George Brett do? He corked the bat.
I think so, right?
He corked the bat, or at least they accused him of it. You know.
Hit bombs.
What? How do you cork a bat? What does that do? This is baseball now. We
it-
switch quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
It lightens it up and then it increases the spring of the bat to my understanding. So it's easier to swing and the jump of the ball is even better.
How do you cork a bat? It means you make it hollow
I
on
don't
the
know how
inside
you
of it.
do a wooden bat, but like I think people could do certain things with like metal bats where they take stuff out of it. But yeah.
But the majors, these guys would take the top off somehow, cork it out,
Right.
and you just hit a bomb.
Yeah, because it's like the trampoline effect on these bats. So they've had to change like high school bats in the past because of that. Like it's not just not corked; it's like they're deadening these bats because these dudes are monsters.
What's a fungo bat?
fungo bat? I love this.
Like another
It's
language to
what
me right
coaches
now. Exactly.
use to hit ground balls and pop flies to their teams, like for in and out and stuff before the game.
But what has been done to that bat? Because that bat you can just
that
hit
bat
bombs with
is
that thing, right?
lighter and it's top heavy, and so it's not like a bat that you'd want to like hit with at all because the barrel's really small, but it's really easy to handle. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. You never heard of this before? Bro, this all goes back to the Pinewood Derby.
We don't play baseball in Carroll City. It was football or basketball. I'm like, what are you guys talking about right now?
It's a certain bat that coaches have that they can hit any type of ball they want to. They can hit big bombs, pop flies. It doesn't matter.
I'll take your word for it.
The reason why I connect the dots is the Pinewood Derby. They were putting so much lead in these cars.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm over
Weighting them
there
up
and
trying
top
to
heavy.
oil up the axle, trying to get it to.
You're doing the real ministry.
I was just really trying to be honest.
Yeah,
and
integrity.
Be ethical.
Integrity.
All that to say, you grew up in church, but
Yeah.
getting into ministry, I think you love the church, but maybe you didn't always feel called to ministry per se. I think it was creativity and the arts that kind of led there. I was hoping we could make that connection a little bit about where you went to college and how you found yourself at the rendezvous.
Like, so, I left South Florida back in 1999. I've been at art schools my entire life. Went to New World School of the Arts down here. Then I went to Maryland Institute College of Art, second oldest art college in the United States of America. Started in 1875. Wow.
What did you go to those schools for? Because you were really good at drawing?
Yeah. I could draw, paint, all traditional fine arts like I was really good at. And sculpture, all those things. So,
and that's all just God-given talent that you had?
I mean, it sounds like weird.
But I'm saying when you were 7, you could draw really good?
No, I mean,
I've never been able to draw anything good.
Yeah, I've been drawing since I was 4.
Okay.
My brother was able to draw pretty well, and as the story goes, this is how my mother and brother and them recall it. My brother drew some things, and he was like, "Hey, draw this." And it was, I remember it was like a Ninja Turtle, Archie. Nobody knows who Archie is because that's just how old I am. And like a rocket. So I was like, yeah, sure. I copied him, and I went to show my mom, and my mom was like, I said, "Mom, look what I drew." And she was like, "Stop lying. Your brother did this." I was like, "No, he didn't. I did." My brother had to come in and defend me so I wouldn't get a whooping because my mom's from the island. So she, like, if you lie, you get destroyed, So that's kind of how it all started. Wow. And then I've been in art schools and stuff my entire life.
How old do you think you were in that story?
I was 4.
4. So she's like, I have a 4-year-old. His name's Wild. And he's learning how to do a W right now. So you're drawing Ninja Turtles.
You're drawing coloring books.
Yeah, we're trying to find the Netflix button on the remote to find the Ninja Turtles show.
Oh my gosh,
just the truth. So yeah, that would be
yeah.
So you have a God-given gift. You can draw. So with that natural talent, you start leaning in towards the arts.
Absolutely, yeah. So it always took me like to schools outside of my natural environment. Everybody else, in my hood, they were playing sports and doing different things like that. I was always the art kid. I had to get bust outside my neighborhood because they just didn't offer those things where I grew up. Like at one point in high school, I used to have to take a train and a bus like 2 hours just to get to school in the morning. So it was like back and forth like that. But I learned some really good traditional, foundational aspects of the craft, learned about all the masters, and helped me get to college. It gave me a way out. And back then I was just looking for a way out of South Florida.
Sure.
Because everybody that I knew from down here, man, they were just getting into trouble. And I was just like, man, I'm not going to build anything down here, at least not with the people that are living in this place. So it's like, well, let me use this art thing as a tool to get out. And it took me all the way to Baltimore, Maryland. And I was there for 5 years and got a master's in digital arts by the time I was done with it. So the bachelor's in illustration, which just means I can draw something to tell a story.
Okay.
Or create something to tell a story. And then digital arts, I was like, man, I got to make money on this. So I figured that if I would create and do it in a digital sense where I was making videos at the time, I was doing websites and different things like that. So just taking all the creative aspects I learned, how to tell a story, but putting it in digital means, I was like, well, I should be able to, actually make a life for myself with that. And from there, that's where I met my wife as well. We met back in 1999, Joanne. She's a designer by trade, graphic designer, typography design. She's unmatched in it. And we've always really partnered well together. And back then we used to talk about, man, let's do a creative business one day, just not really knowing what God had in store for it all. Anyways, I went to New York for a while. I was freelancing up there. And man, it just, there was something that was kind of lacking because I was just doing stuff to make money, but I didn't do anything I felt fulfilled in. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I felt like a urge back to the thing that I had one of the things I was running from, which was church. You know, you get into college, man, you start getting in all kinds of weird, crazy, you know, types of things because you get the exposure. And being away from home, I just got exposed to things I never had been exposed to. But when I was up in New York, man, a piece of me was missing. Like, I wasn't in church. I wasn't doing those things that were foundational in me. And the long and short of it is I was drawn back home to do a summer camp program with one of the pastors on staff at the church that we were both been familiar with, which was Trinity Church. And that summer camp program, working there, actually got me back because I was teaching art to the kids. I was like, well, all right, I want to use my gift to help. Well, let me use it to teach some kids. Let me teach the next generation. From there, that kind of, I mean, me and you had always had a relationship. And I remember at one of those times that I had come back, me and you were having a conversation and you start telling me about this thing called the Rendezvous. And I don't even know, you probably had the name by then already. But you just start talking about this thing where, man, young adults can come and gather and find God and we can make it fun. And once again, like back in that time, all I had known was like just traditional church. We were OG Pentecostal, you know.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, it wasn't fun. It was just something you had to do, you know. And honestly, I think, and I will say this, I think the first time I really laughed in church was when I met your dad. Pastor Rich, man, he's a funny, he's just one of the funniest humans on the planet, right? First time I ever like laughed in church and was like engaged other than, being in youth group or whatever. I was like, oh man, this guy's cool. Like he makes this thing cool. And I always tell this story about him. You've heard me tell it before. It's we're in the basketball court of the church back then. We're all shooting around. This white guy I'd never met before in my life comes up. He's like, pass me the ball. We pass him the ball. He drains a three and walks off like it's nothing. And I'm like, who is this guy? He's like, yeah, I'm Pastor Rich. I'm like, that was the pastor. Like, that was a new pastor. So, like, I always just thought, like, he had, like, a swagger about him. I always thought he was cool. And I got a chance to meet y'all. And all of that, with me and you having those combos about how cool church could be, the reason I trusted it and believed in it is because of how you guys were, not just on the pulpit, but how you were off the pulpit. I'm like, man, there's something genuine to this. Because I see the kind of people that they are and they're cool. I'm like, well, if I align with them, man, then maybe we can go on this journey together and we could see what this thing was. Because I hadn't even heard of a young adult ministry at the time. So I went away, once again, finished my schooling, came back in 2005 to do that camp thing. And I actually became an art teacher. So I was doing double duty. I was teaching art to a private school from ages K to 8th grade. And then in the afternoons, I'd come and do like an after school program with kids or whatever. And then me and you kind of crossed paths again. And you was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to start this thing. Call a Rendezvous. You want in? You ever thought about this ministry thing? I'm like, nah, but if you're doing it, man, let's go. You know, and that's kind of really how I got linked in, you know.
Do you think, what I think is really interesting about the story is, and this is something I say a lot and believe in a lot, is that so often like calling comes and finds us.
Yes.
And I just talk about that a lot. Like and whenever I hear people's stories, I'm always drawn to it because today people can see you and you're pastoring like a booming church.
Yeah.
You guys are in 2 different locations, multiple service, thousands of people turning up. You guys have this great business, which I want to talk about as well. But like, even like you getting into the ministry is so unconventional.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to land at is that you didn't grow up dreaming about preaching. You didn't grow
Last
up
thing in my life I'd ever
dreaming
thought
about
I'd do.
forming and shaping a faith community
Yeah.
and being a church. In fact, even as you're talking right now, like when you're starting the Rendezvous, I don't even think we were nearly as clear as it sounds.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out how we even ended up in that office together. I don't know what I was asking you to do back then or what you thought you were doing for the first little bit. Like, how did you even start preaching? When did you go? You just had you been on a mic before those moments at Rendezvous? Those of you who don't know, I mean, Terrance is an excellent communicator, but like, try to go back to some of that because I think some of that stuff can help people stumble as we talk about maturing and growing. It's like, I think sometimes when we're growing, we don't know we're growing.
Right. I
think a lot of growth happens in the dark. A lot of growth happens and it's like, it's only like, oh, I look back, I'm like, wow, look how far I came.
Right.
We just started this thing and I think leadership is like you get the kickball out and you throw a ball in the group of people and someone grabs the ball and is like, all right, you're a captain and you're a captain. Let's pick teams. I think so much of leadership kind of like people emerge, people rise up in the middle of the chaos or the confusion of it all.
Right. I think in those early days, like now I'm really hyper-focused. I know what I want. I got vision. Back in those early days, I didn't have any of that. Before I had assignment, it was about alignment. So it's like, I trust you guys enough to go on this journey with you.
That's big.
It wasn't about, I want to do this. I was like, man, I just really like doing life with these humans.
Very good.
And because I like doing life with these people and I like what they're doing, let's see how God can use me in that space. And I try to tell young guys this all the time, man, before you can ever have your own vision, you got to be able to submit to somebody else's. You got to be able to serve somebody else's thing. And I always believe that the way you serve in those spaces, that's going to come back on you when it's your time.
Wow.
You know? But back in those times, once again, I was just excited about aligning with folks. But when it comes to like communicating, the very first time I ever preached would have been in a youth group. And back then when I was in youth group, once again, I wasn't looking to be a communicator. I was like driving buses.
Yeah.
I was picking kids up, dropping them off
Real
at
youth
night.
ministry.
Yeah, man. Like I was the host of the game part of the thing. Like I wasn't thinking about like being front and center. There was a pastor by the name of Pastor James who was actually running the youth group at the time. And I was just in there because youth was familiar. I have this tendency to just go back to places that are familiar to me. I knew we were trying to build this thing, but like, I was like, yo, I got this thing about the next generation. Let me just get back around some youth because there's energy there and there's creativity there. And I just want to be a part of it. Like, I don't need to preach anything. And one day he just looks at me. He's like, yeah, you've been around. The kids really look up to you. They respect you. I want you to bring a word. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, how do you even craft that, you know? And I like to liken it to like Ray Charles, because Ray Charles, before he ever created his own, he was a great mimic. Like he just copied things that he saw. And I always believed like more is caught than taught. And your dad taught me that, right? So it's like, all right, if I'm going to do this, remember all the things that you've already seen and try to mimic that well. So before I had my own identity as a communicator, man, listen, if I hear a message, I don't care where it's coming from. I don't care who it's coming from. To this day, I'm taking notes on everything. I'm trying to glean as much as I can because I just believe, man, there's something you can learn in everything. The word goes forth and never returns void. If you don't learn, it's because of you. It's not because of how it was preached or how it was. I mean, maybe you can attribute some things like that, but when you're mature, when you want to learn, you'll learn, right? So I just used to catch things. I was like, all right, I don't know how to do this, but I remember what he did and what he's been doing for the last few weeks, and I try to craft my message based on that. I remember seeing what your dad was doing. I'm like, all right, Pastor Rich preaches. He has 3 points. I should have 3 points. You know, he has an intro. He has a joke. I should try those things. And that's kind of how it started, but I didn't really get a real rhythm of it until me and you really start going at it. And I would say, I think maybe the first time I ever preached in Rendezvous, I think we were doing that series, You See It Black, I See It White. And I wasn't even by myself. Once again, I was terrified, but I felt confidence to do it because we were tag teaming. I was like, oh, if I screw this up, Rich will clean up whatever I have to say anyway. So let's run.
We used to do these big tag team series back in the day.
Yeah.
That were, in our little world, we thought they were a pretty big deal. And they were like the draw card. Like we did like Miami Vice.
Vice.
It was always like a duo thing that you could find from like pop culture.
Totally.
What were some of them? They were Miami Vice.
We did the
Men in
Hangover.
Black.
We did Men in Black.
Hangover.
Y'all did the Hangover?
Yeah. We did Men in Black. Oh, yeah. We've done some crazy. We did
Y'all do Bad Boys?
Pain and Gain.
We should have done Bad Boys.
We did do Bad Boys.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we did Bad Boys.
I feel like I saw
we
something
absolutely,
on Bad
yeah, there's a
Boys.
poster for it. Yeah, we did Bad Boys for sure.
We would always do like movie poster. Like any partnership, we would like figure out a way
to hit though, man.
It would hit, bro.
We hit.
In Miami Gardens in 2007, 2008, 2009, man, this was unbelievable stuff.
Yeah,
because
Miami
young
Vice
adult
was great.
ministry wasn't like at every point. It wasn't necessarily a strategy at that point, correct? That was something that's like, hey, we want to go reach this community that we feel like maybe is a little bit left out right now, or maybe is not a curated space for them. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think that what we were doing at the time is there was all sorts of studies in church. I guess this would be 16 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That the missing group in churches was this 18 to 25-year-old, this 18 to 30-year-old. And when you're coming, I think that you always have a kind of this easy influence of like 5 to 10 years beneath you and 5 to 10 years above you. So if you're 23, 24, it's like anywhere from 18 to 30 feels pretty comfortable.
Right.
And so when I was coming out of college, I'm like, this is who I want to reach. I want to reach my peers. I want to reach the people that I feel like are not going to church.
Where I am right now.
Let's go for it. And so when we moved back to Miami and my dad was like, what do you want to do? I was like, I'd love to try to do something on Tuesday nights for young adults. And I think if I can go back to it, you were just a friend that I had known for a long time that was there really serving in this day camp, in this after school program at the church.
Yep.
So I'd go to the church every day and it's like, oh, there's another guy my age that I know that understands the culture, that understands what's going on. And when I say the culture, just the temperature of the world at that moment, but also the local community that we were in. And I've always just been a person that feels like partnership is everything.
Absolutely.
Like I'm always trying to partner with people. I
There
don't
you
really
go.
do very many things alone when it comes to leadership.
There you go.
I don't know if that's because I'm smart or because I'm afraid, but either which way, it lends me to going towards people and going, let's work together.
Yep.
But from a biblical standpoint, 1 can put 1,000 to flight, 2 can put 10,000 to flight.
Right.
And I find a lot more confidence and security when I'm doing something with someone else. And so my recollection of those days was just not even having a clear path of like, hey, here's your title.
Right.
Here's my title. Here's what I do. Here's what you do. I think we probably even began trying to make some bumper videos.
Absolutely.
And you had some skills around some video work.
Right.
So then it brought you up 1 day a week into the office area that I was in. And then before you know it, it wasn't just making a video. It's like a strategizing.
Right.
And then going, oh, there's synergy here in a meeting. Then maybe me giving you an assignment, you taking that assignment and crushing it and bringing people on the journey. It's like, oh, it's not just a person who can do something. There's a leader. He brings other people into it. And then before you know it, we found our own rhythm. But none of it, like, when I look back, all that stuff was the building blocks of what I'm doing today. And I think for you too, the building blocks of what you're doing today.
Yep.
But you don't know that when you're in it.
Correct.
That's just kind of what I'm
when
trying
you're
to
starting it,
double
right?
down on, because I know someone's listening to you right now
Yeah.
and they have big dreams. Sometimes you have big dreams and you don't even know what those dreams are.
Right.
You have a feeling. You have a sensation. There's a longing. And I think you're giving some really practical steps for people that I think is so important on the journey of maturing. One of the things you're saying is who you align yourself with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I firmly believe that what you're doing is not as important as who you're doing it with.
100%.
I think you're also saying if you don't have vision, or even before you get a vision, serve somebody else's vision. Like the seeds you sow as a follower will be the harvest you reap as a leader.
Absolutely.
These are really important things that many people, they try to skip.
Right.
They never go through. And I think they miss out on the development of what they need. I'm just grateful for it because I learned stumbling into some of that stuff, how to clarify vision, how to clarify roles. I was in a meeting just the other day with some of our team and I'm like, hey, we got to really clarify who's doing what.
Right.
I go back to those times with you and me. I don't think there was any clarity. I think it was like we just kept doing and things became clear.
Absolutely.
So
I think even your
helpful.
story that you're sharing, it's like, did you feel like called to ministry? Is this like, it's something that, it almost felt like it's like, yeah, I don't know what I would necessarily want to do. I'm not saying I want to do that forever.
Right.
But it sounded like your journey was like, this is what I'm supposed to do right now.
Yeah.
Like, is that
absolutely. That's 1,000% true. So what I'll say to speak to that too, because I'm sure as we're going along in this conversation, people are thinking like, because we do the business and we do the church and all this. It's like, how do you balance all that stuff? And to speak to that point, and you already said the word, I don't believe in balance. I believe in rhythm, right? And what's rhythm? Rhythm is a pattern of movement. Rhythm is a pattern of sound. Balance says you got to find perfection in order to find equality. So for me, it's like I don't pursue perfection. I pursue the pattern. If seasons are supposed to be about rhythm, then every season is a different song, man. Like it's gonna be different in every single season. And I'm not always carefully curated in how I'm plotting out my seasons, but what I am looking for is the patterns in every season. Because the patterns will help lead me to the purpose in that season.
good.
So those are things that I look more for, and why I don't stress myself out about trying to live a balanced life. I think often I stumble into things because I'm more intentional about finding the pattern in the season. What is the pattern of this season? What is the song of this season? It's like, man, I'm not just focused on one song at a time. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you live life long enough, you're not one song. You're a catalog. You know, I want you to judge me on my catalog, not the song of my season. Because some seasons aren't going to be good. If you just judge me by that season, then that's not even fair, man. Like, look at the whole catalog.
Very
see
good.
who I've been this entire time. But yeah, I just really think leaning into on finding, I really think this will bless somebody. Like leaning into the rhythm, the pattern of a season will begin to reveal the purpose of that season.
Very good. Very good. And that's a word. And I think that's an important word. And I cannot agree enough that my life is not balanced. And I don't know when it was, it's never been balanced.
Right.
But it does have a rhythm.
Yeah.
And the rhythm is changing from season to season. And if I can't define my season, then I won't be able to determine my rhythm.
Great.
So I think that's important to find, hey, this is what this moment is. This is what we're doing. This is what this is about. These are the important things. This is where I have to win. This is where it's okay to not get an A+. I can get C's over here. I got to get A's in this category.
Right.
Very, very important. When for you on this journey, because like you kind of even mentioned it, like going to art school and then even come back to Miami, when do you think you had when did your theology get shaped? When did you go, all right, I'm in love with Jesus and this is crystal clear? Because, you know, at some point, like you can't lead a church just stumbling. At some point, you have to have clear conviction, clear calling. Is there any moments for you or the calling just emerged? Can you go back to some things where it's like, I don't know if that year, what you said, 2005.
Yeah.
In college, did you doubt who Jesus was? Was it that far? Were you a prodigal? Do you think you were just, can you kind of bring any clarity into those moments?
Yeah. So, I mean, once again, like I love Jesus my entire life. I've never questioned if he was right. But my immaturity wanted to test the waters. It's like I made a joke the other day. I was preaching to church. I was like, man, I'm gonna tell y'all my testimony, but I don't want you to judge me after you hear it. Yeah. Just please see me the same. And I was like, man, here's my testimony. I've loved Jesus my entire life, and my life is good. Like that like I think the greatest testimony is the things that I never had to go through to see Jesus. Some people got to go through things to see Jesus.
Yep.
They got to go through prison. They got to go through addiction. They got to go through hurt. They got to go through trauma. I haven't been through it. It's like not that things haven't happened in my life, but for the most part, I have listened to what the word has said, and my life has been blessed.
Yep.
Like is that, and I would much rather that be my testimony, right? So like questioning Jesus was never really a thing for me. Now I'm a very inquisitive person as it pertains to religion, and I think that really informs the way I look at scripture now, because when I read it, all I do is ask questions. And I'm writing questions in my word because I think the greatest questions give you the greatest revelation. When I was a kid, I loved Jesus. When I was in college, I was being an idiot and I was trying to find everything to get away from Jesus, but I always had that nudge of the Holy Spirit saying, you better get back. You better get back. But then when something happened to me in 2005 before I moved back. I was in New York, I was freelancing, but like, man, I just wasn't doing good. And I had to make a decision. Like I was at a crossroads in my life. It's like, man, what are you gonna do? You got all the degrees in the world. You're not happy, and you're not doing what you love to do. Like you're creating, but you're creating without purpose. And I never forget, I was sitting in my aunt's apartment at the time, and it was a small little apartment. I was sitting on a little bed, you know, those New York apartments, man, could be something else. I just broke down because I was like, this can't be what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. This just can't be it. Like I feel no purpose. And I opened my word and I read a passage, and it spoke to the fact it would have been in Proverbs, and it would have talked about the cost of being lazy. I was like, man, I know I'm a hard worker. I've been a hard worker my whole life, but for whatever reason, things aren't aligning. And I don't want to lose out on who I'm supposed to be because I'm not moving, because I'm stuck in this place. And that for me was a signal in my brain. It's like, this environment you're in that you feel stuck in has slowed you down, has literally stopped the momentum of your life. And this is not who you are. See, in my mind, I thought as an artist, I got to go to New York because that's where everything is fast paced. I actually went to the fastest place in the world and slowed down. And for me, what I didn't want to do was come back here because I thought this was the slowest place in the world. And I was like, the slowest place in the world is just going to slow me down. I saw the total opposite. I got to the fastest place in the world. I got slowed down. God was like, you need the most drastic change you can, and you got to go back to the place that you've been running from. Came back here. It's not till I slowed down that I began to see what God was really showing me, which reminds me of verses like, be still and know. There was a not to rhyme like purposefully, but there was a knowing in the slowing, you know, as I slowed down and I came back to a place that I probably didn't want to come back. Because when I left Miami, I was like, I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
I was like, that's where you got to go. It's the Jonah story. It's the Nineveh story. It's like, that's where I want you. Not where you want to be, where I need you. And once I got here, the alignment started to come. That started to show. But another moment that I would say that happened in 2005. Remember that play we used to do, Voice in the Judgment?
Yep.
There was a guy that started that play in our church. He came from like California. He was like the director of it. I can't remember the gentleman's name. I was in a youth group at the time, just helping out, driving buses, whatever. And I felt the call of God, like being around church again. I was like, I feel like there's something I'm supposed to do here. I just don't know what it is. So I'll just serve, you know. Anyways, this play is about to take place. They're looking for actors for the play. All my friends are I'm laughing at them because I'm like, y'all is stupid. Like, I'm not going to, like, I'll help, but I'm not doing this. And the guy sees me cracking jokes the whole time. And he's like, hey, why don't you try out? Like, I see you laughing, you joking, why don't you? So it's like, all right, sure. So I just acted the fool. He's like, oh, man, you did great. You're going to narrate the whole thing. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what did I get myself into? Night of the play comes. And we pray before the play. This man, who I have only met a few times in these rehearsals, never met him before, never saw him since. He starts prophesying over people before we go do this play.
Wow.
He looks at me dead in my eye. He says, I know you came into this thing as a joke. He said, but God already spoke to you that you're supposed to lead the next generation. You're supposed to mentor and pastor the youth, and you've been running from it. And God wants to bring you to your knees. Bro, I broke down crying before the play because I already knew.
Oh, my goodness.
I already knew. I was like, I kept going to youth because I knew I needed to do something there. Yeah. But I was like, preaching, no way. Like, that was confirmation of things that God had been speaking in my life for a long time that I had been running from. And that was the spark that that was igniting me to say, you know what? I'm going to try this, even though I'm terrified. And that's like when I start.
Those were all promptings to get you back to Miami to obey what you know God was already speaking.
What I knew was in.
It just wasn't necessarily going. It's funny because I don't think you went back to Miami because you love the idea of being an art teacher.
No.
It was more about the fact that God's calling you back to be in Miami. Don't know why.
Don't know why.
All right, let me take the open door that is bringing back to Miami. I'll say yes to that. Don't know why. Oh, okay, this young adult ministry is beginning. Don't know why, but I'll say yes to that because that's another door opening and
catching the pattern.
Well, it's important to see it because I think people don't get it. Like, I think that we think it's going to be perfectly laid out and crystal clear. And I think we go, God, this is my dream. And if you'll tell me what you have for me exactly, then I'll do it. And it doesn't work that way. It's a trust journey.
Yes.
Over and over again. I also love how this guy speaks some words out. You don't even remember this guy's name per se. And I just think for the preachers that are listening, the pastors that are listening, sometimes we think like all of our great moments are going to happen on a stage with a microphone preaching to the masses.
Great point.
But more often than not, it's like the words that we say to individuals that are prophetic. Not like you have to prophesy this or that, but just the word of the Lord. Like we can encourage one another.
Amen.
And those things shape us. Hey, I see this in you. Like how 15, almost 20 years later, actually, you're now pastoring 2 different locations and the things that Cool Church is doing. And a big part of your story is a guy before a Christian play who's in town says something to you. That's how the body of Christ works. That's the power of the church. That's the power of how God works. It's like the nameless. And if we don't care who gets the credit, he will use you. How many parts in the Bible say some men?
Some men.
You know, like,
Right.
And then I love that story in Mark chapter 2 where they lower the man down who's paralyzed. And it's like some men brought a paralytic. We all love to preach the paralytic story, but like, we don't even know the guys.
We don't know those guys.
There you go.
Jesus says, because of your faith, their faith.
Uh-huh.
We don't even know who their faith is. We don't even know these guys' names.
Right.
But this man's life was changed forever. And so it is with all of our lives. So it is with all of our lives.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, how, hey, it's right now. It's finding the pattern. I don't know why I'm going to Miami. But what did art school do? What did that class do? It just opened up the door to get you where you needed to be. I think so oftentimes it's like, God, tell me what I'm going to do so I can create a plan that's most efficient, that builds a foundation. But what I love about your story that's just the truth of God is that he might not tell you what you're going to do, but his plan is going to prepare you for that.
Always.
And the truth that I'm always encouraged with is that our God uses everything.
Yes.
Amen.
That nothing is wasted.
Amen.
And with you, you've had so much experience, but still right now it feels like you're using your gifts in so many different ways. Can you talk a little bit about that, like that journey of nothing is wasted? Now I'm going to go and start a business, and now I'm doing more in my church, and maybe what does that look like with walking in the fullness of I don't have to sacrifice part of my gifting to walk in what God has called me to do. He wants to use all of it.
100%. Just to link on to something that you guys are talking about too, about going through the open door. I just want to kind of caution folks really quick, like don't walk through every open door.
Oh, good point.
I don't think every open door is right. And it's like, well, how do I distinguish? Because that's what people always ask. For me personally, okay, you can take what you want from this. I walk through the doors that terrify me the most. That's just always it's like the things I either don't want to do or the things that frighten me. And once again, it's like those are the things that you need God for. So I've had doors open to me that I did not walk through, that I knew I would have crushed it if I did it. But I don't think I would have been in the will of God. I think I would have been in the will of myself. So for me, I always think that, God will open some things. He'll allow some things to happen, but you shift and you move based on his prompting, because his prompting will lead you to things you cannot do without him. I'll always love that passage in Matthew 4, after Jesus gets baptized. It says, Jesus is led by the Spirit into the wilderness.
Yes.
And I always say this about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit will always lead you to places you don't want to go, to do things you can't do without him. And for me, I don't want to live life leaning on myself and what I can do. I want to go into the places that I cannot survive without him. So I just wanted to say that, because I know there's some people thinking, oh, I'm going to just go through every open door. No, man, you're going to kill yourself that way.
Well, and I think it's important when you talk about the wilderness experience with Jesus, that he's led into the wilderness. And we know he goes there he gets tempted. But what happens before he gets tempted? For 40 days and for 40 nights, he fasts, meaning he's spiritually strong. He's physically weak. But when it comes to the enemy's promptings, it's not about being physically strong. It's about being spiritually strong.
Right.
And so I think that the great insight that you're bringing right now is that I was watching Land Before Time.
Come on. Oh, man. We're aging ourselves today.
Last night with my kids. How do you know that, Dakota? You're too young to know about Land Before Time.
Man.
Sarah. But the thing that was like, here's my connection, is, the mother passes away, but she's like, go to the Great Valley.
Yep.
And getting to the Great Valley is not an easy road. It's a very difficult road. It's a hard path. In fact, that's what the whole movie is about. It's about the friends going, this is too hard, this is too difficult. We thought we were going to get there by now. And they almost divide the group trying to go the easy way. And I think what you just said is so important, that I don't want to say it's always this way, but most of the time the open doors that have come into my life that were going to be the easier path were the wrong doors.
Right.
So I think it is a good thing. Many times the open door is to stay where you are. Many times the open door is to do the thing that doesn't look. I can't tell you how many job offers I had when I was working for my dad. I loved working at Trinity, but we had limited resources. We had limited staff. We were a limited church. and I was getting lots of different opportunities to go to much bigger places full of resources that had bigger platforms. But man, the platform that God built for us in Miami Gardens was a platform that took me around the world.
Right.
And I think that the open door was to stay.
Right.
And that doesn't always work that way. I'm just going, when we started the church, I was afraid as all get out to do it. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
yay,
Yeah.
here I go,
Right.
follow me. It was quite the opposite. It was
Absolutely.
like my dad kicking me out of a nest. I'm like, do the wings even work?
Right.
And so I just think that's really, really insightful. And I think that how you test those things is through prayer and fasting.
Absolutely.
So it's like Jesus, like, was he led to be tempted? I think he was led to pray and fast, and then the temptation came.
Right. Yep.
So I was just tacking onto that. You were about to say something, and we'll get back to the question.
Great.
But nothing wasted, meaning, I think you're landing on too, because today, all that creative work that you did, you're still doing that.
100%.
And you're also pastoring. So I think, let's talk through that a little bit, but God using all these things that over time, you're doing all of it.
Yep.
None of it was wasted.
Right.
Do those things ever conflict? Have you felt the tension of that? Do you ever feel like it has to be either or? Do you have to give this one up to do that one? Maybe talk through all of those things.
So I think the point of contention I had when I initially dove into doing ministry was that I had to give up. I had to give up my creative side. Because, guys, I spent 5 years, like, getting a master's degree and whatnot. And not to, like, promote that and tout that, but it's just like, yo, I used 5 years of my life to learn this very specific skill.
Yep.
And now, God, you're asking a person that did not go to Bible college
Talk about it.
to become a pastor. I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, that seems like wasted movement and wasted time for me, because I just never thought that I would encounter a space in church where I could literally take those tools and use them. And I think that was one of the intriguing things about us first getting going. It's like the first thing you asked me to do wasn't to preach. It was always to create. And I think that's just sidebar, sign of a good leader. You allow people to lean into their gifts.
There you go.
You've always allowed people. I think you do. I could look around the people in this room and see how expansive and how amazing Boo Church is. And I think one of the greatest qualities you have as a leader is you see gifts in people and you allow them to lean into those gifts. You don't make them feel bad about those things. You don't make them feel like an outsider. I could have easily felt like an outsider in God's house. You're like, no, man, use that for ministry. And I think that's just something, man, for all leaders, like, celebrate the gifts in people and live life with them and build culture in them over time, but don't ostracize them. Like, a lot of creatives just felt left out in the church space because they never thought that their gifts could be used there. But yeah, for me, it started with little bumper videos and things that we talked about. And that was cool because, over time we got to produce that TV show to Shake Up Your World. I was like, oh man, this is cool. Like,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, man. Like that was, those are some of like the best times of my life. But then there's that time, as we were doing it over time, I'm not gonna lie, I felt the tension of, man, I feel like I'm called more to the pastoral side of this. And I would say this, the more immature version of myself, that's the version that didn't understand rhythm well. As a creative, oftentimes you end up living in this space of perfection. It's like, man, I want to be a perfectionist. It has to be this way, this way, this way. And me and you, even like in some of our best years with something, because you're a hyper creative, right? So we go back and forth. All our conversations about creativity weren't roses. We had disagreements about creativity, and both of us had an idea about what the thing should be. And I don't think without tension you can't create, on that next level. So I think that tension is necessary. I always tell people when they ask me about me and my wife, like, do y'all argue? I'm like, yeah, the thing we argue most about is creativity. Yeah, because we both have a real specific point of view about it. But once again, those times were transformational for me, and they helped mature me. But the younger me was on some like, it has to be this way, it has to be right, And I was seeking more the perfection of it as opposed to finding the rhythm of it. So those are the times in my own spirit, like, I just felt divided, man. And I thought, all right, here's how I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna start this business on the outside. So it's like, I'm a pastor, but I got this business. So because I have this business, Like that's going to serve
Yep.
this side in me because I know God is calling me to be more pastoral on this side. And, you know, if you're not careful, man, you could walk around living like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know. It really started to gel for me, though, when I started to see the ministry in the creativity. So cool, I know, you know, cool church is what our church is. And cool stands for created out of love. And I had to have a real honest conversation with myself. And it was like, okay, creating out of love isn't you just fulfilling the creative side of you. If you're really creating out of love, then that's ministry, man.
There you go.
Like everything God made was out of love, which is why we came up with the thought and the name in the first place. And me and Dakota were having this conversation as it pertains to clothing. What is the purpose in making clothes? Some people might say, oh, it's for aesthetics. It's to look good. It's to have everything that I've ever made and created in this space. The reason that it's ministry to me is, one, I want to make things that last. That's one. I don't want to just give you a shirt. I want to give you a piece. I want something with some durability. I want something that lasts. Well, the gospel lasts forever.
Yeah.
The way we may go about presenting it's going to change, but you know, it's always going to be here, right? So I want to create stuff that lasts. I want a piece. I want something that's functional, and I want something that you can hold on to. You could touch and feel and be tangible, and when you feel it, and when you wear it, you feel the love in it. You're like, man, somebody took their time to think about all the aspects of this garment and how it is going to bless me, how it's going to be suited for me. For me, that's ministry, man. It's like I don't get to just say I love people. I get to clothe them in that. I get to cover them in that. And yeah, even the typical thing, we pray for every garment and all that. Yeah, man, there's prayer attached to that thing. Like, I mean, there's fashion houses that have been around for centuries, and I can't speak to their practices. I just know every bit of passion, blood, sweat, and tears that we put into everything we do. Why? Because I want to give somebody something that has been carefully curated, cared for, and made with a real intensity and a love to it that will stand the test of time.
Yes.
At the end of the day, like if I just give you, you know, fast fashion, like I'm just not even going. There's a space for that, but that's not the space that we're in.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in that.
Everything you're wearing right now, you made.
Every single thing I'm wearing right now, yes, I made, and I think about how it makes me feel and how it's going to make somebody else feel. The other part of this too, in creating things out of love, like, man, I think about who I'm creating for.
There you go.
I'm creating for the younger me who couldn't afford a nice piece of clothing. So when I finally got something, bro, I'm the guy that takes a toothbrush to his sneakers and puts them back in the box at the end of the night, right? Because my mom was like, hey, I'm going to get you something, and it'll be nice, but you got to take care of it. So I'm thinking about the kid that, man, like maybe he can't afford a lot, but like if he gets this thing's going to last him, and it's going to last, and they'll feel good about themselves because, you know, once again, not only was it made out of love, it was made for them to endure. It's something they could come back to in 5-10 years. It's still cool. Like I honestly, and people will probably laugh or not think this is true when I say this, I don't even own a lot of clothes. I just keep things for a very long time. I'll wear some people like, man, when'd you come out with that? I'm like, man, this thing is 5 years old. I just decided to wear it today.
So good.
Because it's a piece that I know has been made out of a heart of ministry for somebody to have something, once again, that will last, that's meaningful, and that's made for them. And isn't that what God does with us, man? Like he has carefully curated, you know, our lives. He's put so much into us that people just are not aware of, man. He's built us. The Bible says, I love this, in 2 Corinthians 5, that God has placed a deposit of his spirit on the inside of us that guarantees what is to come. And I love to use that verse to say, like, man, there's a piece of heaven inside of all of us that wants to get back there. There's something eternal inside of us that God gave us because he loved us.
Yep.
So I cherish that thing. I take care of that thing.
Very good.
Because God gave it to me. And he gave it to me because he loved me. So
Very good. What do you think about like just this term creativity? Like a lot of people maybe watching, it's like, oh, I'm not creative, but I believe everybody's creative.
Yep.
Maybe talk a little bit about the importance of creativity and how everyone has some form of creativity inside of them and how that even aligns with our faith.
Yeah, I laugh all the time when people say, like, I'm not creative. And, you know, we got 7 core values of Cool Church. You know, it's love, family, generosity, honor, excellence, service, and creativity.
Let's go.
Creativity is that final value. And I tell my daughter this, who, you know, she's hyper creative. She's like us. It's scary. But in my kitchen, there's a chalkboard, and all our family values are listed out. And the last one is creativity. And the definition of creativity is this: it's not, I can draw things well, I make beautiful things. It's one definition. I'm a problem solver.
There you go.
That's what a creative is. And people might give you a different definition of it. I'm a problem solver because I don't look at things the same way everybody else does.
Yes.
So I am created to have a different solution. I think we're all creative aspects of a creator God, right? Like, Dakota, I want to know you. Here's why. Because there's something you're going to show me about God that nobody else can show. Rich, I want to know you. There's something you're going to show me about who God the Father is that I want to know. And I want that to be the same response everybody has to me. I'm giving you a perspective. I'm giving you a point of view by solving problems the way that I solve them, man. I see problems as opportunities, right? And I love God so much because he presents us all with these different problems. And he's like, you know what? Let me put Terrance on that problem. Because the way he's going to solve it is going to be different than how somebody else is going to solve it. So us limiting creativity to maybe a visual means or a sonic means, I really believe dumbs down what creativity is. The greatest piece of advice, I can say this. The greatest piece of advice that I've ever been given in life happened the day I graduated college. I graduated college and I went to some round table kind of thing, whatever. And this guy was a famous illustrator at the time. He was sitting on a panel and they was like, man, how you get all these opportunities? I mean, he was making children's books. He was making movies, all kinds of stuff. He said this one thing. He said, whenever somebody asks you if you know how to do something, say yes, go home, and figure it out. That junk has stuck with me for the last 20 years.
Awesome.
Sounds like Dakota's entire life right there.
That's literally, yeah.
So it's like, hey, you know how to build a space shuttle? No, I'll Google it. YouTube University.
Yeah,
I'm gonna figure it out because that's where the creativity comes into play. I'm gonna do the things other people say. Hey, the reason I get the opportunity is because I say yes to the things that everybody says no to. Because God's already given me a way through him to do it. I just gotta trust that he's gonna do it through me.
Talk to the sentence, I would be creative if I had more time, if I had more resources, if I had this opportunity. Maybe, like, isn't that part of the basis of creativity, in your opinion, is, hey, this is not just the problem, but here's also the materials that you have to solve that problem.
100%. It's like, man, you be creative if you have more faith. I think the best part about creativity to me, and we've had this conversation, Rich, many a times, as an artist, and people are probably gonna be like, no, there's no way. I'll spend hundreds of hours creating something. Once I put my signature on it, I'm personally done with it. It'll go throughout the world. This garment has traveled throughout the world, and everybody's gonna make whatever judgment that they want to make about this garment. Some are gonna wear it because they like it. Some are gonna be like, nah, I don't vibe with that. That's okay. I'm fine with that. I'm literally done with it the moment that I have signed it. So for me, the joy of creativity is never in the end result. It's in the process.
There you go.
That for me, that is the fun part about the challenges that God puts in front of me. All right, God, what'd you put in my brain to figure this out? How we gonna get there? And I think that speaks to the way that many people, they view life thinking more about the destination than the journey. And I'm just like, man, like the reason you're enduring life now instead of enjoying life now is because you're just trying to get somewhere, but you're not having fun along the way. I'm like, man, and that speaks to why the relationship part is so important.
Yeah.
Because who I do it with help makes it fun.
Yep.
I will give no other human more credit than you for this thing. Everything we do, it's fun. We gonna have some fun along the way because the process was always, for me, more fulfilling than the result. Like I never had a doubt on if we were gonna get there. Because like when you got relentless people around you, you're gonna get there.
Mm-hmm.
But man, how are we gonna get there?
Yeah.
Like, are we gonna have fun on the way? Is this gonna be a drag? Is this gonna be the thing that like stops us because we couldn't figure it out? Like for me, the joy of the process of creativity. It's not like if I had this, if I had that. The greatest creativity doesn't come from what you have. It actually comes from what you don't have.
There you go.
All the things you are lacking help sniper focus you towards how you're going to fulfill like that's how, necessity is the mother of invention. So when I don't have something, I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this without this? That's where it starts to get fun.
Fantastic.
That's where the process is beautiful. And once again, just for all the creatives out there, I'm not trying to tell you like you should always celebrate the wins. We celebrate the wins when we get there, but how much more fun in the entire process from start to finish could you have if you leaned into the fact that, man, I may not have this, but it's going to be really fun trying to figure out how we're going to get it.
Limitation leads to innovation.
Bam.
And where there are boundaries create hyper-focus.
Yes.
And wherever you focus, your energy follows. And think about Apollo 13. I was just talking about it the other day with our team. Like, these guys have this engine failure situation. They have to figure out how to get power. And Houston has to take all the elements that they have in the space shuttle, which is some bizarre stuff, duct tape and some weird tubes and a toothbrush.
Right.
It's like, we got to solve this problem. And guess what? The solution was there. The miracle is in the house. The solution is always around you. But you're dropping a lot of wisdom and a lot of gold and a lot of mature statements that I want to try to unpack a little bit and try to kind of dig a little bit more, because we're kind of now leaning into some stuff that's really important to me, which is creativity.
Yep.
And you're saying things that I agree with, but I think some people could still be listening and not recognize why this applies to them or how it pertains to their life.
Yeah.
Creativity, the way that you defined it, I would 100% agree. And I think a big reason why people say I'd be creative if, or I'd be creative that, or creativity, I'm not creative, is because they have a bad working definition for it.
Right.
God is the ultimate creator, and we are created in his image. God speaks to nothing and creates something. And every human being, I'm not talking about like new age, power of your words type stuff. By the way, I think that your words do have power. But what I'm saying is that what makes you human, unlike the animals, is that we can take nothing and make something.
There you go.
Right.
We have intellectual power. We have the power to dream and to create vision and to align with other people and create resources. And so we're created in the image of God. And so we are creative. I wonder, and maybe we can like lean into this a little bit. I think maybe where the tension comes in is maybe we're reducing creativity towards artistry.
Right.
And so I don't know if everyone is always an artist. Maybe, I don't even know if I have a good working definition of artist, but I think that in the church world, sometimes artist voice get diminished.
Right.
And we go to corporate language and we go to scaling language. We use all leadership or entrepreneurial language. It's like companies like Apple is a worldwide, massive corporation, but they loved artistry.
Right.
They loved branding. They loved sleek design. I think that Steve Jobs was a true leader, but he was also an artist. So we can get into that a little bit. But one of the things that you said that I think we've got to unpack is I see problems as an opportunity. That's something that is so good to say. You have to train your brain to think that way.
100%.
But that is a maturity that like, oh, every problem that's coming into my life right now, this actually is the opportunity. Like I can tell myself this every day and still forget it every day. Because I've got lots of problems right now, but I have to continue to teach my brain that the problems that are in front of me are the opportunities that God's giving me, that if I don't run, if I don't quit, if I stick here right now, he's given me the creativity to solve this. And if I solve this, this is what's going to give me authority. This is what's going to draw people to me. This is what's going to bring new resources in my direction.
Right.
It's problem solvers that we're drawn to. So I know I'm kind of landing a bunch of stuff. I don't know what we want to pick up first. Maybe let's pick up from your vantage point. This is just opinion now.
Yeah.
Why do you think at the time, or why do you feel that the church sometimes doesn't respect artistry? We know church history at one point, the best architecture, most design was all in the church. Doesn't always feel that way today. Would you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Anything you want to weigh in with that? And then we'll get back to the problem solving.
Yeah, I mean, I think you
as an artist, I'm more speaking from as an artist. Like,
100%.
Did you go to the church a lot for references when you were in art school?
Well,
the church today.
No,
there we go.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah, because because it was lame. And we talked about it. Like some of the greatest artists throughout history have come or been commissioned by the church, right? And I always used to say this whole thing. It's like Las Vegas, and this is nothing against it. I like Vegas, and I don't know if that's gonna get me canceled or whatever. But I like Vegas. Vegas probably has the worst thing to say and the best way to say it. The church has the greatest thing to say.
Come on now, man.
And we don't have the best way to say it ever. So I never looked at the modern day church as a place for where I was going to find inspiration creatively. And I will say this too, because some of the things me and you used to talk about, I think the church is always trying to keep up with the content of the world. So because we're trying to keep up, we have a tendency more to copy rather than innovate. And these were the things that me and you would even talk about back in the day. Because like I would always get frustrated because it's easy as a young pastor or a person in church to say, just do what they're doing.
There you go.
Why would we do that? It's not because that's bad. I think you should look at what everybody's doing. We did that because it was efficient. It was saved time. We were trying to catch up with what the world was doing. So you just look at the dude that was doing it the best and you do what he did. But the process behind real innovation and creativity takes time.
Yes.
So it takes the church taking risk at the cost of the metrics sometimes to innovate. Like, hey, I'm not going to see, I'm a senior pastor. I like to see butts in seats. I like humans coming on Sunday.
Sure.
Like,
How dare you?
We all lived through COVID. We saw what happens when humans don't come. It's not as fun. Right. Like, I like the days that the church is in right now. People are coming back. It's great. But the thing that is actually getting me very excited about church right now, as I'm looking around and I'm seeing what people are doing, I'm seeing churches just take more risk on the creative side and being more on the leading edge of creativity, as opposed to us always looking on the outside to bring something in. I feel like there's people right now that are doing some great things, and I'm like, man, that's inspiring. That's inspiring. So I actually feel more confident for this generation because I think they have better references to look at. I always say, and this is what I was just taught as an illustration major, your art is only going to be as good as your reference. Everything's referenced from something.
Right.
Like, look at Avatar. We look at it, oh, man, this is an amazing world. Well, those floating mountains, there's a place in China that looks just like that the writers got reference from. Look at the animals. Every animal looks like something that maybe they're pieces of animals that we've known that they just put together. Everything has a reference. And what I want to say is I believe the church is getting better now with our references, and now we're starting to become a reference for everybody else. I used to always really think it was, and I still think, man, like there's stuff like production-wise, storytelling-wise. Like this is why I love movies and I love comedians. They're great references.
No doubt.
Because when you look at movies, you see how people craft a shot, how they're telling the story. When you see comedians, it's like, yo, how'd you bring that full circle, man?
Yes.
Your timing is just incredible. And I think those will always be things that we look at. But I think the church in this generation, because of all the creatives and because of content creation, has been like forced out of its comfort zone of just saying, all right, we can just sit here and do this the way that we've always done it and we'll win. COVID showed us we can't do that.
Yeah.
You'll die.
Yes.
If you don't change, you'll die. So I'm excited about what I see churches doing today.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, some of us still need to come out the Stone Age, and it is what it is, man. I think there's a church for everybody, but I'm happier now with what I'm seeing than when we started. Man.
Well, I think that a big part of what I want to probably think about even after this conversation a little bit more is just maybe I need to work on the categories of how I distinguish creativity versus artistry.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm going to use creativity as a working definition of problem solving, then everyone should be problem solving somehow. I think that you can 100%. Be creative when it comes to administrative work and creative towards organizational management. I've had to use the same parts of my brain for all of those things. When it comes to art now, art becomes very personalized. It becomes very authentic. I think that I would agree with you that the references are getting better, that the references aren't just the same church.
Right.
That people are actually going to history and other places, and they're actually doing their own unique expression of that. And that's, I think, what is really attractive. But you even said something I think that's interesting. I think it's all from a place of maturity. And I think some people might push back on it when you were saying, hey, I just enjoy the journey of it. That takes years and years of experience, and it also takes discipline to say that, because I know a lot of frustrated artists.
Yeah.
It wasn't Da Vinci who said, art is never finished or it's never done. You just walk away from it, or I don't know which way.
Walk away.
It's like,
walk away.
I always think about God creating. It's like, it's good. And then he gets to us and it's very good. Well,
beautiful.
It is good in my opinion, because I've never seen anything beyond it, but God can create anything. So if he's creating a butterfly, I think a butterfly is as dope as it comes.
Oh, man.
But maybe God could have made the butterfly talk, or maybe God could have put feet on the butterfly. Maybe God could have had butterflies, I don't know. I'm just saying he could have done more, but he decided to say it's good and walk away.
Yes.
I think he's given us a rhythm and a pattern of how you create, how you maintain health as you create. Because we know some artists. I have a friend who has written songs that have done really well, but 2 years later goes back to those songs for nobody else's enjoyment other than his. He tries to make them better.
Right.
It's like,
There you go.
Right.
that I know artists like that. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like,
Wow.
they're almost never satisfied.
Yeah.
They're almost signing it is. We have family members who have catalogs of music that can't put their signature on it.
Yeah.
Because it's not
You got it.
finished, or it's
Right.
not. I don't know which word I want to use. It's not done.
Right.
So for you to say it that way, you say it kind of like in a really like nice way.
Yeah.
What's that tension been like for you? And do you land on this? Maybe we have another conversation around the difference between an artist and a creative. I think I've got artistic tendencies, but I think ultimately I'm a leader. And so I think I come into the songwriting session. I love writing songs, but I'm like, yo, next one. And some people would call me the corporate man, but I'm like, I'm into moving things along.
Yeah.
And so I think that an artist probably always needs someone to say it's done. Otherwise, they sometimes wouldn't be done. Like I think that Michelangelo maybe never would have finished the Sistine Chapel unless they were saying,
It wasn't commissioned.
there you go. It wasn't commissioned.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Running a business like Cool, it's like you have to kind of be both at times. And
Right. I mean, for me, the difference between creativity and artistry, creativity once again is about the process and solving the problem. When I think artistry is really more about a mastery of something. So if you're trying to master something, what's the stat? It takes however many hours to become a master at something, and that's why it's hard to walk away from something. That's why you'll come back and try to affected. It's not necessarily, I can only speak for myself, about the piece. It's about the mastery of the craft. I'll
There you
go
go.
back into it
Very good.
because there's things that I know in this season that I didn't know in that season. And if I could apply those things now,
Yep.
like what could this turn into now with this new information? So yeah, when I see something like we have Art Basel down here. So I've been an artist long enough. I can tell how much time somebody's put into something.
Right.
I can tell when people are just like throwing things together. And it used to really bother me and frustrate me as an artist because you'll see cats it's like, you just kind of threw that together. You threw that on the wall and you asking 10 grand for it. You know what I'm saying? That stuff used to frustrate me. Why? Because if I'm talking not just about creativity now, if I'm talking about artistry, I didn't see the master the craft, right? And I know what it takes to master a craft. There's good drummers and there's masterful drummers. There's great there's good draftsmen, and then there's masterful draftsmen. And you can tell, like the longer you do something now, the less time it even takes you because you've mastered that craft. And like when you know, like some things people put on the wall and they call it art. It's offensive to me personally because it's like, yo, I put in all these man hours to learn this thing. Yeah. I've studied this thing back to front, left to right. And, you just came out of, your garage yesterday, threw some paint on something and threw it up on the wall. It's like we look at people like, for example, Picasso. People will look at a piece of art by Picasso and some people will judge it. And they will say, what is this? A child could have done this. Well, if you know the journey of Picasso, when he was coming, he's classically trained, but he could draw anything photorealistic if he chose to. But what happens is, as he mastered his craft, the art began to evolve. And I'm like this, so I get this, and I feel like this with a lot of other artists. Mastery, at its true essence, brings you back to simplicity. It's like, how do you get something now to its simplest form, but it still can tell the same story? Beautiful. It still has the same effect. There's a show called I think it's like Love, Death, and Robots, something crazy like that on Netflix. And there's all these different animators that come together. A lot of stuff's crazy, but there's one episode called Zima Blue. And I love this thing because the art is next level. But what the Zima Blue story was about is about this world famous artist. And when he started painting, he was doing like photorealistic, but he always put this specific color in his art called Zima Blue. So first he's painting like the galaxies, skies, this and that. And then over the course of his career, his paintings start getting so simple that eventually they just become a blue square. He's broken this essence of this thing that he's been chasing all down to the simplest form, this one blue square. Oh my, this is amazing. It's like you appreciate it because you see the journey that he got to be this master of this thing, and he becomes known for this thing. So so the difference for me with mastery, it's like you've sat with something long enough as to where it's like you've almost cracked the code on this thing. Mm-hmm. And now it's effortless. See, when I was a young artist, I just tried so much harder.
Very good.
Now
That's very good.
Becoming more as a communicator. I've had the privilege over the last 20 years to watch you grow as a communicator. And what did we do when we were picking stuff from everybody? Now I watch, now I get to watch in pride as like an older brother, but it's like, yo, there's a mastery to this thing that this guy has now. I'm not saying that to gas you. Like, this is how I feel when I'm listening to it, because now with you, it's effortless.
There it is.
And I think that's where the artistry comes in.
I think it was the Picasso quote, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something like, he gets done doing a thing, it takes him like 15 minutes, and someone's like, well, how long did that take you to paint? And he's like, my entire
whole
life.
There you go.
That's it.
And it's that idea. It's like, oh, if you don't find the value in it, this took me my entire life, and just because it took me 15 minutes right now and I'm going to charge whatever, It's actually this narrative and this story. And I think that is a beautiful part of artistry. And even the end result, like, yeah, now I'm kind of playing with it, but like immaturity a little bit is like, let me show all my colors. Let me show you all my strengths all at once.
There you go.
And it's actually out of ego and pride versus out of humility and service. I think one of the great definitions of how do you know if I'm becoming mature is maturity for me. One of the most simple definitions of maturity is when I just want to be helpful.
Yeah.
Like whatever I'm putting into the earth is just to be helpful.
Yeah.
Who am I as a man? I want to be helpful. That's a really interesting reduced down definition that we can talk about more another time. But I think communication, which I don't think I'm an artist, or I think I have artist-like tendencies. I don't think I'm a master of anything by any means yet. And even if I was, I'd be very afraid to say it.
No, you shouldn't
But
say it.
like,
That's why I'll say it for you.
I think that great, thank you.
Yeah.
I think one of those great ideas of like even communication, which we all know, is like that whole iceberg analogy, which is you just see the tip of the iceberg, but beneath the surface is this massive, massive iceberg. And I think great communicators, great preachers are ones that I'm standing up on a stage and I'm presenting some content, but the content that I'm presenting, I know all of its legs and all of its tentacles and all of the structure that's beneath the surface. And that's what's giving weight.
Yeah.
So this one sentence that I've reduced down, if we want to pick it apart, it's not a cliche or a phrase that I heard. It's something that I have developed, landed on, and I'm trying to serve and be helpful to the audience, that you could take this handle and know that this thing that you're carrying is attached to something much bulkier, much bigger, and it can help you carry this truth.
Very good.
Yes.
And that probably is a big part of where I would land with the church if we want to use that as artistry, which is we are just at times grabbing things
Yes.
and sticking it on. And I'm not going to even talk about the global church. Let's talk about our local churches and our local communities. I think one of the most helpful things when it comes to creativity in a local community is discovering the artistic threads that you have in that house.
Yes.
We had this funny thing happen the other day. I came to VU College Chapel, which Dakota helps lead all of VU College. Does lead all of VU College. Doesn't help. Does lead it. I help lead it. He does lead it. But I was in the chapel, and there was this wonderful girl up on the stage, and she was hosting. She was like emceeing, and it's all college students that are in the college. And I think that day they were kind of maybe assigned to give part of their testimony. We had VU Girl coming up. VU Girl was going to be this big event hosted at the Fillmore Theater with 2,000 women.
Yep.
And it's a pretty big event for us.
Yeah.
This girl's up on the stage, and she just shares a brief testimony. She's not being self-serving. She's just going, hey, it was a preview day, so there's other kids there to hear. And she's like, hey, I want to tell you my VU College story. I was at the University of Miami, and I was on a scholarship for the flute. And that was my dream, a master's degree in the flute, when the Lord got a hold of me and called me to full-time ministry. And I've dropped out, and now I go to VU College. And I'm just listening to this, and I'm like, how long has she been in the college?
Right.
And how come I haven't heard the flute played anywhere in our church?
Sorry about that.
It's like, my bad.
And I'm not putting someone down, but it's like, oh, because no one plays the flute in the church
There you
today.
go. Yes.
Oh, do we not think the flute is cool? We don't think a master's degree in the flute has a place in the... Of course it does if you have that artist in your community.
Exactly.
So I was like, yo, she's on for VU Girl this coming
3 days
weekend.
away.
3 days later, she's playing the flute at the Fillmore. And I think that to me is an actual handle into what I mean by the church at times suffering in artistry.
Yes.
Is that what we do is we watch and we try to copy and try to mimic all of what's transpiring. It's a big reason why I want us to sing our own music in our church.
100%.
Not because I think that we're the best. I don't think VU worship's the best music. I think it's our music.
Right.
There you go.
And I
Right.
think that we should go through the journey of trying to discover who we are and what we bring. That doesn't mean we don't reference Hillsong or Elevation or whatever these other music things are and learn from it. And I bet right now if you listen to VU worship, it's like, oh, it kind of sounds like an Elevation song. It's like, probably does as we're learning through it. But I know I've got a bunch of singers. I know I've got a bunch of guitar players. I know I've got a bunch of drummers. Why would we not be trying to come together and try to bring our own unique expression into our own context? To me, that is the journey of mastering something.
Yes.
And that's finding your own voice.
Yes.
And you know what? Let's really be honest now. you can go to like a really cool like bar this weekend and someone could be covering John Mayer songs and you would have a really wonderful evening.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what you're not doing? You're not going to buy that dude's CD, which
Right.
by the way, no one buys CDs. You're not going to stream that guy's music because he's a cover act.
Exactly.
He's a cover act.
Mm-hmm.
But what is memorable is John Mayer and his music and the unique thing he's bringing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think artistry is about discovering, taking the time to figure out
Yes.
what it is that you have that is unique. I don't think that you should kill yourself and say, we have to be different from whatever else. I
Right.
think there's something in front of you that's unique to you.
Right.
Just add that into the mix
Mm-hmm.
and watch as that creates pathways and attracts other people to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think when it comes to the church, right now being in this place where I think, like you said, we have grown so much and where we are creativity. But it's all reference. And I think one of the reasons why is because what you said at the beginning, you said, I didn't really think that church had room for me
Right.
in my
100%.
artistry. I didn't think church had room for my creativity. So the reason we have now this, we have to be a reference is because we have an issue with retention.
Right.
It's because their creatives probably being grown up in church and they feel like to live out their creativity that God has given them, by the way, they have to go somewhere else to be developed.
Right.
And I think the beautiful roadmap that we're on right now is I think retention is happening, and I think that will lead to reproduction.
It's great.
And I think when you start talking about Royal Rangers, it's a funny situation, but what was Royal Rangers? It was a discipleship mechanism that we could raise up men, little boys, to be men of God. I think what we're on the journey of right now is now our kids are not going to grow up in the church that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And they actually are going to have not references outside the church, but inside the church. They're going to realize in order to develop my creativity, I don't have to go somewhere else.
Right.
I can stay. And I think it's going to be a beautiful season for us to go, oh, you know what? There are artists not just in our church. There are artists being raised
Right.
in our church.
Amen.
And that's mature me, and that's the journey of going, it's not going to happen quick.
Mm-hmm.
This is a journey. I love what you're talking about. It's like a get-through mentality as an artist, as a creative. It's not really, it's going to zap your creativity.
Absolutely.
I just want to get through. That's going to mess up your relationships. That's going to mess up your enjoyment, your joy. That's going to mess up your excellence.
Yeah.
Anybody that's excellent, they don't have a get-through mentality.
No.
They have, I'm going to maximize this opportunity mentality. I'm going to put my 10 toes down mentality. So I do think that as we have this conversation of church and creativity, there's beautiful hope that's going, I think 10 years from now, I think we're going to be having a different conversation.
Well, and I think as leaders, and I think once again, the things that you're accomplishing today with Cool as a brand, which is just unbelievable, but then the church, as it continues to flourish and grow, there's a lot of lessons that you've learned along the way
Yeah.
of going to art school, stepping into the ministry, doing youth ministry, helping in kids ministry, doing after-school programs, teaching art, being a support pastor. You've had so many different jobs. God's used all of it. And some of these lessons that you've discovered is what puts you in a really great seat to be a leader of empowering other people. And I think that if we just stay sometimes in one lane, I think hyper-focus no doubt can create incredible results. But
Yeah.
to be in a lead pastor role at times, I think it just requires such a person of vision
Yeah.
and the ability to work with and collaborate. And I think a big part why sometimes it can squash the artistry is what you just said is like, it's just inefficient.
Right.
You got 52 weeks. We got to show back up next Sunday and we got to keep things moving. And I don't think that should be like criticized. I think that's just the reality of what it is.
Yeah.
But it takes a heart posture to figure out where the other artists are that can develop them.
There you go.
And one of the great lessons that you've learned, what you're talking about, which is going, I'm going to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
And at some point, even like my God, I have to say, all right, it's good. I got to walk away from it. There's a great psychological study, and it's called the silver medal syndrome. And the silver medal syndrome did this study where it discovered that bronze medal winners are happier than silver medal winners. And why is it? It's because the guys that got the silver medal were so close to being perfect.
Yeah.
It should have been better. It could have been better. Whereas the bronze medal winner's like, yo, could have been worse.
Right. I'm just happy to be here.
Right. Made it on the podium.
We made it.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think that's a big part of that's a healthy creative mentality for me, which is could have been worse. I get another shot. What I like about church and what I like about church community is we're doing this journey together.
Yes.
We're growing. We're becoming. That's why I probably wouldn't see myself as like an extreme artist. I want to have artistic tendencies, communication, songwriting. I love design. I love fashion.
Yeah.
If I had more time, I could do all those things a little bit better, and I will as time grows. I've got more time today than I have in the past, but it's all been on the journey of it. But I want to have that kind of mentality, like, it could have been worse. Like, I'm glad I'm up on this podium. I'm still trying to drive this vehicle forward, and I'm more hopeful about the future than I am about the past.
Yeah.
And that keeps drawing me in. What are some areas right now for you when it comes to both the church and the brand that you're really excited about, that you're hopeful about? What are some things that are positive?
Oh man, there's a lot of things that are positive, and I think you hinted on one thing, and you said it. You said I have more time now than I ever had. I think that actually comes from a place of mastery as well, because the longer you do something, you learn the ability to edit. And man, when you can edit, man, that just gives you so much more. There's things I used to do that I no longer have to do. And it's not just because somebody else is doing it. Yes, that's true in some places, but some things I'm just realizing, like, man, this is not even the best use of my time. So I've learned to edit. One of the things, as we were talking about the mature versus immature, your dad said something to me a long time ago, and it was the first time he ever heard me preach a message. I preached it, and then I was done. I know I went too long because I still go too long. But he said, hey, man, there's next Sunday. That junk stuck with me for he's like, what he was saying is, man, you ain't got to pour out everything right now in this season. It's like, there's another opportunity. Like, so learn to edit, learn to cut back on things and create space in your life. So the things that I'm most excited about now, and man, not to be cliche, it just is what it is. Like, you're talking to a person that built a church on love and family. The thing I'm the most excited about right now is my daughter's about to go to high school. And it really excites me because I'm getting to see a 14-year-old mind mature right in front of me.
Beautiful, man.
Like, every day, my disciplines, your disciplines create space for you too. But it's like, roll out of bed, read your Bible, take your daughter to school, go to the gym. Why do I take her to school? I want to have influence on her because she's going to get more influence from these people that she's with for all these hours of the day that I'm not going to be around. So I got to make sure I have an influence. So, like, every day on the way to school, it's a 15-minute ride. Take out your Bible. She's reading me a passage every day. We've gotten through Matthew, Luke, and John. She's not in Mark yet. We're about to finish up John.
Come on.
And she's reading the passage, and I'm asking her, hey, so what'd you observe from that passage? And she has to tell me, well, base level, I saw X, Y, Z. All right, how does that apply to your life? Those conversations that I've created space in my life to have, that conversation to me is more important than the conversations I'm going to have in staff meeting. Because at the end of the day, if I'm focused more on this thing that God has called me to build instead of the family that he's called me to build, man, I missed it anyway.
Preach.
Like, I'm not going to get this time back. You know, you were there from the beginning, man. We adopted Vava 10 years ago. It's been 10 years. High school's going to be done in 4. And she's going, like, I mean, she'll be with us forever. But I'm just saying, like, man, this time while you're trying to build something great, every pastor, leader out there, it's like, yo, you doing all this great stuff to build God's kingdom, but, like, don't lose your family in the process.
There you go.
I love making stuff. I love building people. I love building families, but, like, what this season of my life has afforded me is more time to invest in the people I care about the most, man. It's like, once again, I'm not trying to sound cliche, but, like, that's what I care about the most, man. At the end of the day, like, leaving work every day to pick up can somebody else do it? Yeah, but it's my job. I take that to heart. Taking my wife out on dates, that's my job. Like, nobody else can do that. So I am excited about the fact that God has graced us to grow in the way that we have grown, and graced us by sending help to now create space for me to lean into the thing that is the most important in my life, which is my family.
Can't say it better than that, my friend. Terrance Wilson, ladies and gentlemen. Cool church. Cool, the brand, create out of love. There's definitely, they can probably go to Cool Church. And
you can go to thecoolchurch.com. If you want the clothes, you can go to coolcreativeinc.com or shop Cool Creative. Just type in Cool Creative on Google. It'll come up.
It'll come up. Support these guys, what they're doing. You got to come back soon, man. We appreciate all that you're doing. Love talking creativity in church. We need to do a whole thing on that.
So much more.
Like, let's just get into all that. I like that a lot.
I love it.
But man, follow these guys. Check out what they're up to because it's really, really cool. And if this episode was helpful in any which way, go ahead and like it, subscribe to it, share it. One of the things that we're really excited about that's coming up right around the corner is VooCon 2024. We want you to be with us this summer, June 20th through the 22nd. Terrance Wilson will be there. Dakota will be there. I'll be there. And here's a little bit more so you can get registered today.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Robert Madu, and hey, I am so excited to be in Miami, Florida this summer for VooCon 2024. Look, I've personally been coming to this conference for years, but this year is going to be at a whole nother level. Workshops, arena sessions, powerful times of worship. Look, you need to invest in your future and get your face in the place at VooCon 2024. Get your tickets at VooCon.com. You don't want to miss out. I'll see you there. This is the beauty of grace. This is the beauty of coming to Jesus. Every healing, every miracle, it is not your merit. It is not your record. It is not your good behavior. It is nothing but the grace and the goodness of